Well, there's no shortage of so-called woke books for children. As Bethany Bomberger points out, all these books have skewed one way politically until now.
Author and educator Bethany Bomberger and her husband Ryan are co-founders of the Radiance Foundation, a faith-based organization that illuminates the truth about difficult social issues, such as abortion. She believes children are naturally pro-life and can be empowered, even at an early age, to stand up for what's right and good. In her book, Pro-Life Kids, Bethany teaches an age-appropriate worldview of the abortion culture and reinforces the value of human life in and out of the womb.
Well, Bethany is with us now via Skype. Bethany, thank you so much for being with us this morning.
It's a joy. I'm so glad to join you.
All right, well, let's start with your story. At one time, you found yourself pregnant and unmarried. Then something happened when you saw the ultrasound of your baby. Tell us about that.
Yes, well, I was in my 20s and I had found myself stepping away from the Lord in my faith and ended up in a pretty abusive relationship and found myself pregnant. And I was really encouraged by my colleagues and by the biological father to choose abortion, excuse me. And I knew in my heart that that was not going to be an option for me. I had stepped into an ultrasound, which I always feel is quite profound because it happened to be on February 14th back in 2004. And that morning while I was by myself in that ultrasound, I was able to see what looked like a little grain of salt just blinking, and that was my daughter's heart. And as I laid there, I just felt the presence of God and his heart just embracing mine and my daughter's. And I made a decision to turn my heart back to the Lord. That night, I went home and opened up an old journal. And there in the margin was Psalm 34:5, which says, I sought the Lord. He delivered me from all my fears. And those that look to him will be radiant, and their faces will never be covered with shame. That night, I exchanged the shame of that relationship and the things, the emotions that I had. And I said, you know what, Lord, I want your glory to overcome, and I will choose life for my daughter. That night, I named my oldest daughter Radiance, which then turned into really the name of the organization that my husband and I have led for 13 years. Yeah. But it's just because God never gets tired of exchanging his radiant glory for the shame, regardless of what issue.
Amen to that. It was such a beautiful story. Well, let's talk about abortion. Abortion is such a graphic topic. Are children too young to be taught about the issue?
Well, I'll tell you what, I've been a teacher in public schools and private schools and a homeschooling teacher, a homeschooling mama for 17 years. And I would say that children can learn what is right and good from a very young age. And it is okay to hit social issues and talk about them from an age-appropriate perspective. And guess what? We know that there is a targeted agenda to normalize sin and normalize abortion among our children today. And so as pro-life adults, we have to be intentional about speaking about and teaching our children before a broken world reaches them. And we're able to do that when we have the right tools, which is why I actually wrote the book, Pro-Life Kids. It's my heart to exchange the fear that most adults have when it comes to talking to children about very difficult issues and replace that fear with a confidence that comes when you know you have a tool to engage in a conversation that will have long-term effects.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what are some of the ways to talk to children about abortion from different age ranges?
Sometimes I really think that we make fostering a pro-life worldview among kids a lot more complicated than it needs to be. You know, it's pretty natural for us as parents to teach our children to be kind to others, to understand that humans have value and that we can love other human beings. I always say we can love other human beings doesn't mean we love all human doings, but still just starting with a foundation that says that we value other humans regardless of their size, their age, their circumstances that surround their life. But there's a lot of ways that we can foster that. We can talk about humanity. We could talk about children that are unborn. We could come alongside pregnancy care centers and different programs at our churches that are helping to step in and help mamas that are possibly in some crisis pregnancy situations. And we can do things as simple as creating a letter or a picture for different people in our neighborhood, or different mamas that are walking through different difficult times while they're pregnant.
Absolutely. Well, you have spoken about training children to become factivists. What exactly do you mean by that?
Well, I think that we always hear the buzzword activists, but when you are an activist, sometimes you're just moving off of pure emotion. And we believe that when we have a biblical perspective, that although our emotions are involved, there's facts that are involved. There is a biblical standard by which we need to weigh every single bit of information that is coming in. So it is my passion to see children from very young ages understand that God made us emotional people, but he has something to say about every issue. And when we understand what he says, then we can look at these issues from a biblical perspective and not just an emotional one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, tell us about your husband's adoption story. Did that motivate you and Ryan to adopt?
Oh, very much so. You know, we co-founded the Radiance Foundation. It's now been about 13 years. And because we have both experienced incredible transformation in our life, it's really propelled us into doing what we're doing now. Ryan was adopted after being in foster care for 6 weeks, and he was adopted into a very loving family. And this happened after Ryan's birth mom conceived him in rape.
Wow.
She chose actually to go through 9 months of a very traumatic pregnancy, and chose to give him the gift of life and the gift of adoption. Both are very courageous gifts. And that, of course, when we think about the choices that his birth mother could have made and how other people would have been fine with them, I realized that there could have been a missing piece in my life, and not a Ryan Bomberger. But courage stands up and says, with God, we can overcome difficult situations, and
Absolutely.
women can choose life-affirming choices.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Bethany, thank you so much for being with us today. The book is called Pro-Life Kids, and it's available nationwide. Bethany, thank you again for being with us, and God bless you and your husband and your ministry.